The predictions about the catastrophe
As another
that is
therapy
the
for Ebola
coronavirus
is already being
meant more
tested on
Americans
Americans
want
with
to die.
COVID-19,
The World
but it's
Health
still
Organization
unclear
says
when
that
any of these treatments will be
Moments
widely
ago, the State Department raised the travel advisory to the highest level, to level 4 in its office.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the government's top expert on infectious diseases.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is Dave with Marketing Ideas for Printers, and I thank you once again for joining us on another webinar in our Coronavirus Resources for Printers webinar series. And as always, our purpose with these webinars is to provide resources to help you survive now and thrive later. This webinar, as always, is coming live from my office, which again is my home office, decorated with my bed in the background. As I've mentioned before, the kids are working in their home school versus their classroom. They get the good spots, I get the bedroom here. So we will celebrate the end of social distancing someday. We're not there today, but we will do that someday. And in the meantime, we'll continue to give that message that our websites and marketing messages, they need to be social distancing friendly. And we are going to have a really good conversation today with another printer just like you, Mike Jensen. He'll be coming on a little bit later to share how he's used his website and more than the website, really created a very good program that is that he's used to be able to connect with other businesses in his community. We'll get up to that in just a little bit, but let's take care of a few of the housekeeping items first. And that is a reminder that, and I'm sorry, I got to actually get the next step here so I can give you the reminder. A reminder that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website, coronavirusresourcesforprinters.com. As a reminder, all of the webinars are posted here. I would encourage you, if you were not able to visit us on our last episode, episode number 5, really good episode on some tools that you can use for remote work, but beyond that, some tools that might actually save you a bunch of money for your phone system. And I won't go into those details now, but I will encourage you to look at episode number 5 if you have not done that. That's currently featured as the most recent webinar. That'll drop down as we put today's webinar into that top spot. There will be a survey afterwards, and one of the questions on the survey will ask you for your ideas that you have that can be shared with others, and ideas that you have for how we can best help you with resources like this. So please stick around after this webinar wraps up. Give us just a few seconds of your feedback. Take as much time as you want, but it really can be as little as just a few seconds. We want to listen. We want to be here to help. We want to offer that respond to your feedback and offer the help and hope in any way we can. And remember that this is only temporary. We are going to take the lessons we learn in this really crazy coronavirus time, and we will come out stronger. We will get through this together. And one of those ways that we're going to get through this together is by listening to other printers, and that's where I'm going to bring in Mike Jensen from Tri-M Graphics in Owatonna, Minnesota. As we were talking beforehand on the webinar, as we were preparing for this webinar, he's just a little bit south of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I told him I put on my Paul Bunyan shirt in honor of him joining us today. And hopefully that's more than just a regional thing. If you all know who Paul Bunyan is, you can look for the shirt colors there. So Mike, thank you for joining us today. Just thrilled to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for asking us or inviting us. We're pleased to be a part of the program.
So this all started with one of those survey feedbacks. Mike left this feedback, and I'm just going to read it. And the feedback Mike left on, actually, I think it was just last Tuesday's webinar.
It was.
Yeah, so we turned this one around quickly here, and Mike said we did have success creating a business reference guide for our community. We engaged with close to 60 businesses in the area that participated in the program. We utilized our Marketing Ideas for Printers website order form to create the way for them to submit their info. It worked awesome. We have info about it on our website, triamgraphics.com. We then mailed out 13,400 of them through the Every Door direct mail program. And so that email, Mike, or that note afterwards is the basis for what we're talking about today. And I'll pull up your website, triamgraphics.com. And if you're doing that via recording, I would invite you to do the same. But kick us off, Mike. What was the inspiration behind this guide? Kind of give us the play-by-play on how this all came together for you.
Absolutely. Well, a couple things happened. We as a team were meeting and had a conversation of there's a lot of folks out there that aren't socially connected. I mean, there's a ton of great, social programs, whether it's through Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, all of the social media platforms that are out there, they're great and they're reaching many people. There's also a whole audience out there that's not being served by those sources. And for us, the impetus or where it all really started was when the restaurant closures started happening or the shutdown and they had to change to, takeout or delivery or those kinds of things. We wanted to provide a way for restaurants to be able to communicate with potential customers that, hey, I'm still here, you can connect with me, that sort of thing. But as we started brainstorming the project and looking at the scope of the project, we quickly realized there were a lot more than just restaurants that needed to communicate with existing and potential and new customers. So quickly, this piece morphed into what we called a business reference guide. We wrestled a little bit with the name and what we would try and call it. It does have a tagline on it: stay healthy, stay connected in the midst of COVID-19. But really the emphasis or the focus was on the reference guide itself. As we started to further brainstorm and look at this, we realized that we couldn't put specific information on there like, we do XYZ delivery or pick up this or do that, because it was ever changing, it was ever flowing. So what we decided was it made probably most sense to get the basic information out there. What's the name of the business, their address, phone number, and who should they contact if they have any questions about that business or organization. What's the best way? How does that business want to be contacted or reached? And so that worked really well to kind of identify that, because then what we did was we took those fields and we loaded them into an order form on our website that was specific to this project. For us, that worked out really slick, because as they went through and filled out the order form, you can see in front of you, they could, check things, which category of business were they, or was it another? And we actually had a number of others that then all of a sudden morphed into new categories that we didn't think about. Their basic information. Then once that order was submitted, we could then just copy and paste the information into our document. So we weren't having to rekey, retype, because all of this happened so quickly. I think from the start of the conception to them hitting the mail was approximately a week that we did all of this in. For me, it was interesting. I spent the better part of a Saturday really going through and just searching our community, which is Owatonna, Minnesota, looking for people in different categories, whether it was automotive, nonprofit, realtors, insurance, and trying to reach out to all of them to let them know that this resource is available, whether they were a current customer of ours or not. And it actually reaped some rewards for us in the sense that we were able to connect with some businesses that we've never connected with before. They associated us with a positive, forward-moving project. And so that was kind of exciting feedback to hear from them. They were very excited about that. We've actually had a lot of people reach out to us since asking us, are you going to do another one?
That's great. Let's sneak up to that, because those rewards are super important. But I want to pause just for a moment, just to I had the benefit of seeing this guide already, so I want to get everyone else up to speed on a couple of things. Right on your homepage, you've got that reference guide, a link to it right there. So I'm just going to click to that. Looks like you have your participating businesses there.
We do.
The other part of it, for the people listening live, the guide that Mike has created, that is available as a handout. If you look in the webinar control panels, and right there too, that is available as a handout, as a PDF. We're also going to make that available. Mike has given us permission to make that available as a download, so we will add that as one of the links, along with the recording of the webinar. And Mike, I think we can do this, and if it's okay, I'll ask your permission, and can we link to this order form as well?
Oh, that would be fine. Yeah.
And I know this is inactive order form at the moment, but I'll have to double check that and just make sure we don't run into any technical oopses there, but we'll leave it as an inactive order form. And if we can link to it in a way that people can see it without making it active, we'll include that link as well.
Absolutely. And one of the things to make this all possible, all of these businesses had to join together. I mean, they had to make an investment as well. We did ask for a nominal amount from each of them, $75, to help us underwrite, the production of it as well as the postage. In all honesty, I mean, there was no margin on this one for us. This was a one where we wanted to give back to the community. But as you know, even with Every Door Direct Mail, there's still an expenditure for postage. On this one, I think it's somewhere like around 18-19 cents for an Every Door Direct Mail. And we mailed to every address in the 55060 district or whatever. And so we wanted to make sure everybody physically got one of these pieces.
Yeah, so you were mentioning, you started to talk about, already have shared a little bit about how it's been received. And maybe have you go a little bit more on that. But before you do, offline, as we're preparing for this, you mentioned your mission statement, and I think that kind of leads nicely into how it's being received. Can you share that?
When my father started the business back in 1981, the mission statement really hasn't changed. We are all about building relationships through integrity and innovation. For us, it is so important that we have a strong relationship with our customers and with our clients. Because as you have ups and downs as they have ups and downs in their business, we have ups and downs in our business. It is so nice to have a relationship with them that you can weather those ups and downs together. I think I had sent you a note saying that we actually have adopted one of your things in your first video that talked about the wellness calls. We have actually started making wellness calls to our clients, not looking for any business, just saying, how are you doing? I mean, we want to know you personally. We want to get to know you personally. What's going on with you? And there's been real value in that, and they've really appreciated those calls.
Yeah, that's been a huge part of this for everybody. That's honestly, if I'm sensing kind of a common theme for those that are really positioning themselves for success, not that it's all about the success, but that genuine care. What you're doing here, Mike, really, I think, exhibits that beautifully, and I just love what you're doing with that. Just for a quick pause, we have a little bit of time yet, and we're going to try to stay close to that 20 minutes. So if you're in the audience and want to ask some questions, as much as we're able to, we will entertain those questions. So we'll see if any of those come in. Mike, you had also mentioned, kind of unrelated to this, but still kind of important. You had mentioned that you've kind of uncovered some critical sector customers. Could you share a little bit about that?
Well, it's been interesting for us as we weather the storm and go through the process, realizing a number of our customers are in what we would call the critical sector, that we hadn't necessarily thought of that or realized that. As we look at, we have some banks that are customers, hadn't really necessarily thought about them, but they had to change their complete operations, going from, face-to-face contact to drive-through. So all of a sudden we're seeing orders for drive-through envelopes and things that hadn't happened before, and being able to turn those as quick as we can for them has been, we've been very pleased that we've been able to do that to continue to build those relationships. As we look at some of our customers, for example, we have a fairly sizable nonprofit customer that we work with, and they had a capital campaign project that they were working on, and they decided to table the capital campaign project, but they were doing a lot of hands-on things right now with providing basic needs of food, clothing, things like that they wanted to make sure they were communicating that message to their donors, saying, hey, in the midst of all of this, we want you to know that we're doing this, that this is happening. And they realized that there's a large number of their donor population that don't have digital connections or aren't necessarily going to see a pop-up here or there. So they're sending out this week an intentional mailer with a letter with a response piece indicating, hey, this is happening. We are, supporting this community. We're doing some good things, letting people know that.
Yeah, you mentioned something there, and it kind of almost slipped by me, but I know what you just said is a direct answer to one of the other questions that was asked on one of our survey follow-ups. And I don't remember the exact words, but it was something along the lines of, how do we reach exactly what you just said? How do we reach people that are not socially connected, that aren't on Facebook, that really just don't have that whole social media approach? And this is it. You've done that. You've found that way to reach those people with this business guide or the community reference guide.
Absolutely. It provides a nice resource for them that they can easily and quickly discern and use. I know a number of folks have called us. They've actually posted it, or they've put it by their phone, or they have a place where they are keeping it as a reference as they go forward. So in that sense, it's truly doing that. It's getting creative with the mail. There's lots of things that can be done with direct mail. If you're creative, there's certainly value in that, especially in this time where there is such an overload of social media posts and things happening, that it gets very cloudy. It gets very confusing, where direct mail certainly can cut through that clutter and can have impact.
It's a very, very great point to make. I would encourage the questions yet. I see we have one come in, so if there are other people in the audience that have questions, please bring them in. But the question that did come in, Mike, is for you. How did you contact the businesses to participate in the guide or let them know about it?
A couple of different ways. We did some phone calling, which is physical way to reach out to them. Then I sent out personal emails. I would go and look for their email address, whether I had it or not, and sent out a personal email, just individually, one-offs, not through any, engine or that sort of things that you could, work your way around with that, with a direct link back to our website with the information where they could engage. And that really had some significant impact, personally addressing each of them that way. We also did, the standard social media. I did some booths, did some, through, the standards, whether it's Facebook, the Google, as well as Twitter, trying to hit out in those mediums as well. But in all honesty, the personal contact, I think, was the best way. It does take some time. It's going to take some energy. It's not a quick thing, but I think it's worth it in the end.
I was just going to say that it seems like every bit of it has been worth the effort, not only, maybe not even especially for you, but for your community. It sounds like that's the big win here. It's the community that you've been able to surround yourself with in this.
And I know that we're not an exception. There are lots of incredibly strong communities that are pulling together. Owatonna is certainly pulling together in so many different ways. One of the things that, our chamber, for example, has done an awesome job of building a website page which has all of the details and a lot of the same type of information, but it wasn't tangible and not everybody could get to it. So there's different ways we're pulling together as a community, which is powerful. And I'm sure that's happening in many other communities across the country. You take a difficult situation like this and people rally, they pull together, they support support each other.
Well, and if you even just think about this community, the community of printers that are gathering around this webinar, I say it a lot, we will get through this together. And this is such a perfect example that you're willing to share this idea that other printers can use it for their communities as well. So thank you for bringing that to this community as well. And I think that actually, I'm looking at the clock, we're getting close to that end, so I'm going to have to draw this part to a close.
Okay.
But I do want to kind of play on that idea of community. So if you're watching this webinar, whether it's live or via recording, and you have a story like Mike's, if you have something that you've done that works, that really works well for you to help build that community or whatever it is to reach out to the greater audience, we would love to feature you on that too. So I thank you so much. You know what? I see one more question come in. I'm going to kind of cheat the time clock here a little bit. Mike, can you take one more question?
Sure, I'll make a quick answer.
All right, here you go. It says, did you have anybody nervous about saying they are open when not allowed?
We didn't, this piece doesn't say that they're open or closed. This is how do you reach this organization? Because some of these places are actually closed. We have chiropractors in some places that are physically closed, and we have dentists on here. But how do they get information from that organization? So it's a reference guide in that sense. It doesn't say these places are all open. It's just how do I communicate with these people if I have a need or an interest in what they're offering or serving.
Perfect. All right, well, just to recap it then, the reminder that the guide that Mike has created is available as a download through the handouts part of this webinar. We will make it available when the recording of this webinar gets posted. And unless we run into any technical reasons that we can't, because it's an inactive form, we'll also link to that form as well. So Mike, thank you so much again for joining with us today. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you for the opportunity to share our story.
You bet, you bet. So we'll wrap up the webinar here, and that is the reminder that the recording of today's webinar will be posted on coronavirusresourcesforprinters.com. If you find value in this webinar series, do us a favor, please, and share this resource, share Coronavirus Resources for Printers with your fellow printers. If you can get this message out to even one more printer, that'll just help build that community that we were talking about here. A lot of the follow-up that we get through the survey that's about to follow the webinar does get turned into tips and FAQs that we deliver via email or blog or even future webinar topics. So please do stick around for the survey. And Mike, we can turn off our webcams right now and we'll get ready for that survey here. And just a reminder that we will get through this and we will get through it together. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Stick around for the survey.